At exactly age 30, your body's production of human growth hormone drops by a massive 25%, and you officially start losing 1% of your collagen every single year. Inside this video, we are breaking down the 7 literal biological changes happening to you right now and the exact science-backed habits to reverse them. By the end, you'll have a daily blueprint to look and feel younger at 40 than you did at 25. But if you click away, you're going to miss the one healthy workout habit that is actually accelerating your aging process. Hitting your 30s feels like walking off an invisible biological cliff. One day you are eating whatever you want, staying up until 2 in the morning and waking up completely fine. The next day, you sleep slightly wrong on a perfectly good pillow and wake up with neck pain that lasts for 3 business weeks. You have a couple of drinks with friends, and the hangover takes 2 full days to clear out of your system. You look in the mirror and realize your metabolism, that incredible furnace that burned through everything in your 20s, has completely vanished. You feel different because you are biologically different. Aging is not just a calendar date. It is a physical, measurable process happening inside your cells, and it aggressively accelerates the second you leave your 20s. To fix this, you have to understand what is actually going wrong under the hood. First, your body starts accumulating what scientists call cellular senescence. These are zombie cells. They are damaged cells that refuse to die. Instead of clearing out, they stick around in your tissues and spit out a constant stream of toxic inflammation. This low-grade inflammation is the root cause of almost every single age-related issue you experience. It makes your joints ache, it makes your brain foggy, and it slows down your recovery. Second, your levels of a molecule called NAD+ take a nosedive. Think of NAD+ as the battery fluid for your cells. When you have high levels of it in your 20s, your cells have the energy to repair damage instantly. As those levels crash in your 30s, your cellular batteries drain faster than they can recharge. You feel tired for no obvious reason. Your skin does not bounce back the way it used to. Third, you enter the early stages of sarcopenia. This is the age-related loss of muscle mass. If you do nothing, you will lose 3 to 8% of your muscle mass every single decade from here on out. And muscle is not just for looking good at the beach. It is your metabolic engine. Losing muscle means your body burns fewer calories at rest, which is exactly why the fat starts piling on around your midsection even if you haven't changed your diet. Ignoring these biological shifts right now is a massive mistake. If you let these processes run wild, your 40s and 50s are going to be miserable. You will be fighting an uphill battle against fatigue, weight gain, and chronic pain. But the good news is that aging is a process you can actually slow down, and in some cases, completely reverse if you change your inputs today. You need a completely new playbook. What worked at 22 is going to destroy you at 32. The first massive change you need to make involves how you eat, specifically the protein pulsing strategy. The goal here is to stop muscle wasting in its tracks. You need to front-load your protein to hit 30 to 40 grams per single meal, starting first thing in the morning. Here is exactly why this works. When you cross into your 30s, your body develops something called anabolic resistance. In your early 20s, your body was hypersensitive to nutrients. You could eat a tiny bit of protein, or even just some random junk food, and your body would easily trigger muscle protein synthesis. It wanted to build and maintain muscle. Now, because of anabolic resistance, your body is stubborn. It requires a much higher threshold of a specific amino acid called leucine to flip the switch and tell your body to build muscle. If you eat a meal with only 15 grams of protein, you do not get enough leucine to hit that threshold. Your body basically ignores it. The protein gets burned for energy instead of being used to repair your tissue. To overcome anabolic resistance, you have to hit at least 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein in one sitting. You cannot just eat one massive steak at dinner and call it a day. Your body cannot store protein for later use like it stores fat or carbohydrates. You have to pulse it throughout the day. This means you need eggs and Greek yogurt for breakfast to get that first 40 grams. You need a solid chicken breast at lunch for the next 40 grams. You need fish or lean beef at dinner for the final pulse. Look at the body composition of two 35-year-olds. The first one eats a bagel or a piece of toast for breakfast. They get maybe 5 grams of protein. Their blood sugar spikes, their insulin spikes, and their body stays in a muscle-wasting state all morning. By lunchtime, they are starving, so they eat a salad with barely any chicken on it. Again, they miss the leucine threshold. By dinner, they eat a huge meal, but it is too late. They spend 80% of their day breaking down muscle tissue. Over 5 years, they look soft, tired, and aged. The second 35-year-old wakes up and immediately eats 4 eggs and half a cup of cottage cheese. They hit 40 grams of protein right out of the gate. They trigger muscle protein synthesis. Their blood sugar stays perfectly flat. Their metabolism revs up because breaking down protein takes energy. They do this again at lunch and dinner. This person maintains the metabolism and the firm, lean body of a 25-year-old. The most common mistake people make is thinking all protein is equal, or saving all their protein macros for a giant dinner. Plant proteins often lack enough leucine to hit the threshold unless you eat massive quantities, so if you are plant-based, you have to be incredibly strategic with combining foods or supplementing. But the craziest part about how your body processes food after 30 is still coming. Even if you get your protein perfectly dialed in, it will not matter at all if your cellular battery is completely dead. This brings us to the second major habit you need to build: Zone 2 cardio. The goal here is to rebuild your cellular battery from the ground up. You need to accumulate 150 to 200 minutes of Zone 2 cardio every single week. Zone 2 is a very specific, conversational pace of exercise. Mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the absolute hallmarks of aging. Your mitochondria are the little engines inside your cells that turn food and oxygen into energy. When you are young, you have tons of them, and they are incredibly efficient. As you age, these engines start to rust. They become dysfunctional. They produce less energy and more toxic exhaust. Zone 2 training is the only type of exercise that specifically targets and fixes this problem. When you exercise in this exact heart rate zone, you force your body to clear out the old, rusty mitochondria and build brand new, highly efficient ones. You literally upgrade the engine of every single cell in your body. This also dramatically boosts your VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during intense exercise. Medical data shows that your VO2 max is the single greatest predictor of longevity. A high VO2 max is associated with a 50% lower risk of all-cause mortality compared to someone with a below-average VO2 max. It is a stronger predictor of how long you will live than smoking, diabetes, or heart disease. To do this correctly, you need to find an activity you can sustain at a steady pace. This could be a brisk incline walk on a treadmill, light cycling on a stationary bike, or a very slow jog. The golden rule is the talk test. You need to be working hard enough that you are sweating and breathing slightly heavy, but you should still be able to hold a conversation without gasping for air. If you have to stop and catch your breath to finish a sentence, you are going too fast. Think about physician Peter Attia's concept of the centenarian decathlon. The goal is not just to live to 100. The goal is to be highly functional in your 80s and 90s. You want to be able to pick up your grandkids from the floor. You want to be able to carry your own groceries up a flight of stairs. You want to be able to catch yourself if you trip on a curb. The Zone 2 base you build in your 30s dictates your physical freedom in your 80s. The single most common mistake people make with this is going too hard. The fitness industry has brainwashed us into thinking that if an exercise does not leave you dead on the floor in a pool of sweat, it did not count. So people get on the treadmill and push themselves into Zone 3 or Zone 4. They start breathing heavy. Their legs burn. The second you cross that threshold into Zone 3, your body stops using fat for fuel and switches to burning carbohydrates. More importantly, you completely lose the specific mitochondrial adaptation. You ruin the cellular benefit. Slower is actually better here. If you are already rethinking your morning run, hit that like and subscribe button. We are just getting started, and the next tip changes everything. Once you get your cellular engines rebuilt, you have to find a way to clean up the garbage that has been accumulating in your tissues. This is where the 13-hour fasting window comes in. The tip is incredibly straightforward. You need to stop eating 3 full hours before you go to sleep, And you need to delay your breakfast slightly to create a 13 to 14-hour fasting window every single night. This works because of a biological process called autophagy. Autophagy translates to self-eating. This is your body's internal Pac-Man system. When this system turns on, it cruises through your bloodstream and your tissues, hunting down those dead, aging zombie cells we talked about earlier. It eats up damaged proteins, clears out cellular debris, and recycles the junk into usable energy. It is the ultimate anti-aging cleanup crew. But here is the catch. Autophagy only turns on when your insulin levels drop and stay low for an extended period of time. Every time you eat, your blood sugar rises and your body releases insulin to deal with it. As long as insulin is elevated, autophagy is completely shut off. Your body is in storage mode, not repair mode. To activate this cleanup crew, you just need to finish your dinner by 7 p.m. After that, no snacks, no handful of almonds, no glass of wine, just water. You go to sleep and you do not eat your high-protein breakfast until 8 a.m. the next morning. It is that simple. You spend the vast majority of the fast completely asleep. Look at what happens when you have a late-night snacking habit. You eat a bowl of ice cream or some chips at 10 p.m. while watching a show. You spike your insulin right before bed. Your body spends the entire night trying to digest that food instead of repairing your cells. The autophagy switch never flips. You wake up looking puffy, your eyes are swollen, your joints feel stiff, and you feel exhausted. You literally aged yourself overnight because you robbed your body of its cellular cleanup phase. The biggest mistake people make here is pushing fasting to crazy extremes. They hear fasting is good, so they start doing 18 or 20-hour fasts every single day. In your 20s, you might get away with that. In your 30s, extreme chronic fasting stresses the nervous system. It spikes cortisol levels. Most dangerously, it makes it mathematically impossible to get enough protein in during your tiny eating window, which leads directly to muscle loss. A 13 to 14-hour window gives you all the cellular cleanup you need without sacrificing your muscle mass. Now you have your diet and your cardio mapped out. But none of this works if you do not fix the environment where the actual physical repair takes place. You need to optimize your sleep architecture. This is the ultimate human growth hormone hack. The rule here is to cool your bedroom down to 65 degrees Fahrenheit and block out all blue light for 90 full minutes before you get into bed. This works because sleep is not just a block of unconscious time. It is a highly active biological state with distinct phases. The most critical phase for anti-aging is deep sleep, also known as slow-wave sleep. This is the only time your brain activates the glymphatic system. Think of this as a power washer for your brain. It literally flushes out amyloid plaques and metabolic waste that build up during the day. If you do not clear these plaques, they accumulate and are heavily linked to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease later in life. Deep sleep is also when your pituitary gland releases the vast majority of your human growth hormone. This is the hormone responsible for repairing your skin, healing your muscles, and burning fat. If you cut your deep sleep short, you cut off your anti-aging supply. To get into deep sleep, your core body temperature has to drop by about 2 to 3 degrees. If your room is 72 degrees and you are buried under heavy blankets, your body cannot dump that heat. You will stay stuck in light sleep all night. You need to set the thermostat to 65 degrees. You need to use a cooling mattress pad if you sleep hot. You need blackout curtains so your room is pitch black. More importantly, you need a strict no screens in bed rule. The blue light from your phone mimics the sun. When it hits your eyes at 10 p.m., it tricks your brain into thinking it is high noon. Your brain completely shuts down the production of melatonin, the hormone that signals your body to sleep. Let's look at a real case study. Person A gets 8 hours of sleep, but their room is warm and they scrolled on their phone until the second they closed their eyes. They wake up feeling like they got hit by a truck because they got almost zero deep sleep. No brainwashing, no HGH release. Person B gets only 7 hours of sleep, but their room is freezing cold, pitch black, and they read a physical book for an hour before bed. They get 2 solid hours of deep sleep. They wake up feeling completely refreshed, their skin looks clear, and their muscles are recovered. Highly optimized sleep always beats a higher quantity of garbage sleep. The most common mistake people make to fix their sleep is relying on melatonin gummies. Taking synthetic melatonin every night is a disaster. It disrupts your brain's natural ability to produce the hormone on its own. It also causes a massive hangover effect the next morning. You don't need a pill. You need to fix your light environment and your room temperature. Wait till you hear what sugar is actually doing to your face in just a minute. But first, we have to talk about how you move your body, because the old aches and pains are starting to creep in. Tip number 5 is joint proofing and tendon loading. You have to swap out random, passive stretching for active mobility and isometric holds. In your 20s, your tendons were incredibly elastic. Your joints were constantly bathed in synovial fluid, which acts like WD-40 for your body. As you age past 30, that synovial fluid starts to dry up. Your tendons become stiffer and lose their bounce. This is why you wake up feeling incredibly stiff, and why things that used to be easy suddenly cause random injuries. Passive stretching does absolutely nothing to fix this. Sitting on the floor and reaching for your toes for 30 seconds does not rebuild the tendon or lubricate the joint. To fix aging joints, you have to take them through a full range of motion under a physical load. You need to incorporate deep goblet squats, where you hold a weight at your chest and sink down as far as your hips will possibly go, pausing at the bottom. You need to do dead hangs from a pull-up bar for 60 seconds at a time to decompress your spine and stretch the connective tissue in your shoulders. You need to do ATG split squats, pushing your knee far over your toe to bulletproof the patellar tendon. When you load a joint in its deepest, most stretched position, you force blood and nutrients directly into the connective tissue. You literally rebuild the elasticity. Think about the simple act of waking up and bending over to tie your shoes. Someone who does not joint-proof their body bends over, their stiff lower back takes all the strain, and they throw their back out doing a completely normal daily task. Someone who does active mobility bends over, their hips open up smoothly, their ankles flex, and their back stays perfectly safe. They move like a teenager. The absolute biggest mistake people make is doing static stretches right before a heavy workout. Holding a hamstring stretch for a minute before you go lift weights actually weakens the muscle. It temporarily turns off the nervous system connection to that muscle, making you significantly more prone to injury. Save the passive stretching for after the workout, and use active load-bearing movements to warm up. If your knees felt that tip on a spiritual level, drop a comment with your biggest "I feel old" moment, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss these deep dives. Now that your body is moving right, we have to fix your hormones at the baseline level. This brings us to tip number 6, strategic sun exposure and vitamin D. You need to get 10 to 15 minutes of direct morning sunlight in your eyes and on your bare skin before 9 a.m. every single day. This works because of how your brain's internal clock operates. You have a master clock in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. When natural sunlight hits the melanopsin receptors in your eyes first thing in the morning, it sends a powerful electrical signal to this clock. It tells your brain that the day has officially started. This triggers a healthy, natural spike in cortisol. We normally think of cortisol as a bad stress hormone, but a morning spike is exactly what you want. It gives you energy, clears away brain fog, and sets a timer. Because you spiked it early, your cortisol levels will naturally crash 14 hours later, allowing melatonin to rise so you can fall asleep effortlessly. On top of the circadian rhythm benefits, getting sunlight on your skin synthesizes vitamin D. We call it a vitamin, but it is actually a powerful pro-hormone. It is the fundamental building block your body uses to maintain healthy testosterone levels in men and balanced estrogen levels in women. If your vitamin D tanks, your hormones tank with it. To do this right, you literally just walk outside immediately after waking up. You do not wear sunglasses. You let the natural light hit your eyes. You expose as much skin as the weather allows. Look at the standard office worker syndrome. They wake up in the pitch dark. They look at the artificial blue light of their phone. They drive to work in a car with tinted windows. They sit inside under harsh fluorescent lights all day. Their brain never gets the signal that it is morning. Their cortisol never spikes properly, so they rely on 4 cups of coffee. By 2 p.m., their energy completely crashes. At night, they cannot sleep because their internal clock is completely broken. They feel depressed, tired, and hormonally wrecked, all because they missed 10 minutes of sunlight. The biggest mistake people make is trying to get their sunlight through a window. Sitting in your kitchen looking out the window does not work. Standard window glass filters out the specific UVB rays required to trigger vitamin D production, and it heavily dims the lux intensity of the light hitting your eyes. You have to physically step outside. And the reason why most people age 10 years in their 30s? It all comes down to this next daily habit. Tip number 7 is blocking glycation by completely eliminating added liquid sugars and ultra-processed carbohydrates from your diet. The goal is to save your skin and your blood vessels from literally rusting from the inside out. This works because of a destructive biological process that creates advanced glycation end products, which are perfectly abbreviated as AGEs. When you consume excess sugar, it enters your bloodstream. If you do not burn it off immediately through exercise, those sugar molecules start crashing into proteins and fats in your blood. They bind together and form AGEs. Think of this process like caramelizing onions or searing a steak in a hot pan. The sugar causes the proteins to brown, stiffen, and harden. This exact same caramelization process happens inside your body. The sugar binds directly to your collagen and your elastin. These are the proteins that keep your skin firm, tight, and youthful. Once they become glycated, they turn brittle. They snap. Your skin starts to sag, deep wrinkles form, and you lose that youthful glow. To stop this, you have to drastically cut out the worst offenders. You need to swap sodas, sweetened lattes, energy drinks, and even store-bought fruit juices for water, black coffee, and whole fruit. Whole fruit has sugar, but it is wrapped in fiber, which slows down the absorption and prevents the massive blood sugar spike that causes glycation. You can literally see the results of this on people's faces. Dermatologists call it sugar face. You can take 2 people with the exact same expensive skincare routine. One eats a high-sugar diet, the other eats a low-sugar, whole food diet. The one eating sugar will visibly age faster. Their skin will look dull, they will have more acne, and their jawline will lose its firmness. Skincare products cannot outwork a diet that is breaking down your collagen from the inside. The most common mistake people make is falling for health halo marketing. They think that because they use agave nectar, organic honey, or raw cane sugar, they are making a healthy choice. Your bloodstream does not care about the organic label on the bottle. Sugar is sugar. When it hits your blood in high amounts without fiber, it causes glycation. Quick reminder, if this video is helping you rethink your daily routine, hit subscribe. Let's get into the bonus tip that goes against everything you've been told about working out. You need to stop doing high-intensity HIIT workouts 5 days a week. We have been sold the idea that more sweat and more intensity equals better results. In your early 20s, your nervous system was incredibly resilient. You could go to a dark room, blast heavy music, do a frantic boot camp workout that spiked your heart rate to the absolute max, and your body would recover by the next day. In your 30s, your recovery capacity changes. Chronic high-intensity cardio without adequate recovery is a disaster for aging. When you do these extreme HIIT classes day after day, you keep your nervous system locked in a sympathetic fight-or-flight state. Your body thinks it is constantly running from a predator. This causes your baseline cortisol levels to stay chronically elevated. When cortisol is chronically high, your body refuses to burn fat. In fact, it actively stores fat, specifically deep visceral belly fat, as a survival mechanism. It also breaks down muscle tissue to convert into quick energy, and it accelerates cellular aging by suppressing your immune system. You are literally working out hard every single day just to look softer, feel more exhausted, and age faster. You have to change the stimulus. Switch your routine to lifting heavy weights 3 days a week to build the muscle and trigger the leucine threshold. Fill the rest of your days with the Zone 2 cardio we talked about earlier. This combination builds your metabolic engine and rebuilds your cellular batteries without frying your nervous system. You will recover faster, drop the stubborn belly fat, and actually have energy left over for your life. You now have the complete biological blueprint. But having the information is useless if you do not have a system to execute it. Here is your simple 1-2-3 daily action plan that you can start tomorrow morning. Step 1 is your morning protocol. You wake up and immediately step outside for 10 minutes of direct sunlight. No phone, no sunglasses, You come back inside and you eat a breakfast with 30 to 40 grams of high quality protein to break your fast and trigger muscle protein synthesis. Step 2 is your daily movement. Sometime during the day, you go for a 30-minute brisk walk. You keep the pace fast enough to break a light sweat, but slow enough that you can breathe through your nose or hold a conversation. You are accumulating your zone 2 minutes and building new mitochondria. Step 3 is your nighttime routine. You finish your last bite of food by 7 p.m. to let your insulin drop and start the autophagy cleanup process. 90 minutes before bed, you put the phone in another room. You turn the bedroom thermostat down to 65 degrees, pull the blackout curtains, and get the deep sleep your brain needs to wash away the daily damage. I know this sounds like a lot to take on all at once. The challenge is that you do not have to do all 7 of these things perfectly starting tomorrow. Trying to overhaul your entire life overnight is a guaranteed way to fail. I challenge you to pick just one tip from this video to start with on Monday. Maybe you just focus on getting 40 grams of protein at breakfast. Maybe you just focus on finishing dinner by 7 p.m. Master one habit, let it become second nature, and then stack the next one on top of it. Aging is inevitable. Time is going to pass no matter what you do. But how fast you age, how you feel when you wake up, and how your body performs a decade from now is completely up to you. Start with tip number 1 tomorrow morning and take control of your biology.